Who did we
All right.
decide?
Westborough TV.
Everybody in the waiting room is now joining,
Great.
and they have joined.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for this public meeting on the Westborough Master Plan. My name is Lester Hensley. I'm the chair of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, and along with Hazel Nurse, vice chair, and the rest of the Master Plan Advisory Committee members, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight. It's hard to believe that a year ago we had the first public meeting in February 29th, and just before our world changed and our lives changed dramatically. But I see some familiar names and some new names. So for those of you who joined us for that first meeting, welcome back. Thank you for being here. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, wonderful to have you. Looking forward to your positive contributions to this process. For those who are joining us for the first time, the master plan is an undertaking of a community. It should be done by a community approximately every 10 or 15 years. And the goal is the production of a document that will set forth the goals and tasks that will be undertaken by the community, the elected officials, volunteers, the town department heads, that will shape the future of the character of the community. So it's a wonderful forward-looking process. It's one that we've been diligently working at over the course of the year, and that we are going to sort of move now through to the next phase. So for those who are not familiar with the phases of our master plan, we broke it into three segments, and we started with the Reflex Phase, in which we looked at the community and what makes it what it is, and it created a baseline from which to move now into the Explores Phase. And in the Explores Phase, we're trying to identify the goals and the specific actions we'd like to take to achieve an outcome. And we'll wrap that up as a consequence of the input you give us at this meeting, and then move into the confirms stage, which is the time period in which we actually begin to craft the document and codify the plan going forward. So thank you for joining us to be a part of that very important process. What we're going to do tonight is go through a number of exercises, but the most important will be that we will gather in breakout rooms to get your feedback on the 9 chapters that will define the master plan. And in that process, I'd like you to visualize with me as if we were gathered together in the cafeteria at the high school at round tables, where we can gather as groups with facilitators and note takers to capture your feedback on questions posed or from your comments. So at that point in the process, our consultant will break you up into groups. You will be assigned to a small group, and you will be joined there by a facilitator. There are 9 chapters, but there'll be 4 breakout sessions. So you'll get to contribute randomly to those 4. If you have an area of particular interest that you want to give us feedback for, we've created on the westboroughmasterplan.com website the ability for you to do that after this meeting, and we certainly hope you will do that as well. So with that as a preamble, I'll turn it over to VHB, our consultant, and we're going to do a little bit of real-time polling to see who's in the room tonight and begin to move into the agenda for the evening. So with that, I'll turn that over to, I believe, Jeffrey.
I think, Donnie, you're going to kick us off for this
Or
evening?
Donnie's going to
Sure,
kick us
no,
off.
yeah,
That's right.
no problem. So I just want to make sure that, everybody on this particular Zoom call is viewing through Zoom as at the moment. But Westborough TV is also live streaming. You can view it on Verizon Channel 24 or Charter Channel 191. You can always submit your comments and questions during the meeting, and then after the meeting at planning@town.westborough.ma.us. All comments and questions will be received by the town planner, Jim Robbins. Lester, should we go through the open meeting law?
Oh, I didn't know that we had to because it was so publicly advertised and open to everybody. But if you think we need to, I'm happy to.
I think you should, Lester.
Okay, so we'll stick with us while we go through the formalities here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Master Plan Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. Emails need to include your full name and address in the subject line in order to be read as part of the record. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192 or live streamed online at westboroughTV.org. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Yes, thank you very much for that formality, Lester. And one correction, Verizon 24 and Charter 191. All right, everybody, welcome to the Westborough Master Plan Public Meeting number 2. My name is Donnie Goris-Kolb. I'm the project manager on the consultant side. I'm joined by my colleague, Jeffrey Morrison Logan, also at VHB. Tonight, we want to go through a robust agenda. We've done some welcome and introductions. Thank you, Lester. Then we'll go into some real-time polling. What we really want to get out of that is who's in the room, who's joining us this evening. We've made some specific efforts and targeted efforts to diversify the audience and the participants this evening. Then we'll give a very, very brief overview of the project status and schedule. Jim Robbins will be presenting on the vision statement that was approved by the Master Plan Advisory Committee. We'll go over the goals and actions and what a goal is versus what an action is versus how it relates to the vision statement. Then we'll have some breakout group discussions. So as everybody is probably aware, you're not able to unmute yourself or start your video at this particular time. You won't be able to do so in the main meeting, but the participants will have robust opportunities to have a discussion during the breakout groups. You'll be able to unmute yourself. You'll be able to live stream your video as well. And then we'll have a 20-minute report back period after those discussions are had. And then we'll outline the next steps and adjourn at approximately 8:30. All right, so the fun bit, real-time polling, who's in the room? So I do want to give you some instructions here. We are using a polling software called Poll Everywhere. So there's two options to participate. There's through the web and via text. If you're joining through the web, you can join and go to pollev.com, and that's listed there, and enter VHB Planning 007, a little James Bond reference. Again, pollev.com and enter VHB Planning 007 as the username. And if you're joining via text, you can text VHB Planning 007 to 22333. Now the number that you're texting to is 22333, and the body of the text or the message is VHB Planning 007. So again, web, pollev.com, text 22333, and enter, in both cases, VHB Planning 007. And you'll know that if you've done it successfully if you get these messages. So if you're joining by web, waiting for VHP 007 presentation to begin with a nice graphic of a lady viewing a presentation. And if you're joining by text, you should get this message that says you've joined VHP planning session, VHP planning 007, and you'll just wait until the activities begin, which will be in just a short moment. I do want to give everybody just perhaps another 10 seconds to get that up and running. There'll be 5 or 6 questions, and we'll try to run through them rather quickly, but why don't we begin? Okay, so this is a bit of a joke question. Who won the 1918 World Series? Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Indians, New York Giants, Boston Red Sox, or Christy Yamaguchi? Runs from A, B, C, D, and E. I'm voting for Christy myself. All right, why don't we close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Trying to move this here. And for the record, it was the Boston Red Sox. So who's in the room today? What is your age range? Under 17A, 18 to 20B, 21 to 29C, 30 to 39D, 40 to 49E, 50 to 59F, 60 to 69G, 70 to 79H, and 80 or older. Okay, we've got a good, diverse participant list based on the age. All right, who's in the room today? Do you have school-age children? Children 0 to 17 living at home with you? Yes is A and no is B. Pretty evenly distributed. We'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, 50-50. What is your race and ethnicity? A is white, B is Black or African American, C is American Indian or Alaska Native, D is Asian, which includes Far East, Southeast Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. E is Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. F is Hispanic or Latino. And G, if you prefer not to answer, which is perfectly reasonable, is prefer not to answer. Okay. Close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, and what type of housing do you live? Do you live in a building with 1 dwelling unit? That could be a single family home. A building with 2 units, could be a duplex. B, building with 3 units, that could be a triplex. C, a building with 4 to 20 units, small multifamily building, apartment building. D, building with more than 20 units. E, and anything that's other than those mentioned. F. Okay, great. Closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who's in the room today? Do you rent or do you own? Rent A, own B, or C, other? All right. You can close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, great. Who's in the room today? How long have you lived in Westborough? Under 5 years, A, 5 to 10, B, 15 to 20, C, over 20 years, D, and I do not live in Westborough, E, which is perfectly fine. Wow. You have some long timers here. Great. We'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And how are you viewing this meeting? Zoom A and Westborough TV B. There we go. There might be a little bit of a delay for Westborough TV, but I'm glad you're joining us this evening. All right, why don't we close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, that was the last question. So thank you for joining that exercise. Now what we want to do is just give a very, very brief overview of the project status and schedule. As Lester mentioned, we broke this up into 3 different phases: Westborough Reflex, which ran from the very start of the project in November 2019 through October 2020. And as you recall, we had our first public meeting during February of 2020. During that period, we took a look at the past, the current, and the projected future for conditions in Westborough relative to the master plan elements. Master plan elements being land use, housing, economic development, natural resources, etc. And the Master Plan Advisory Committee came together. They reviewed all of the feedback, all of the data, all of the information that we've gathered, and came up with some issues and opportunities. And that brought us into the Westborough Explorers phase, which began in November 2020 and has run through this month of February 2021, with a small break in the middle due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But taking those issues and opportunities, we developed some goals and some actions. And the Master Plan Advisory Committee has sort of finalized some draft goals and actions that we're going to be presenting this evening, and it's going to be the focus of our breakout room discussions. And after this evening, we'll take your feedback, we'll finalize the draft goals and actions, and we'll proceed with the development of an implementation plan. So we'll go back to the public during a public survey and ask for the public to confirm and prioritize the actions that we've developed over the course of the Westborough Explorers period, for example. And then in May 2021, we intend to finalize the master plan. And the activities done to date. So I did want to highlight the great work that the advisory committee has been doing. So the advisory committee, I think 95% of the committee is here this evening. We've come together and we've concluded public survey number 1. We've taken those ideas and again, distilled them into some issues and opportunities and developed draft goals and actions from them. We've launched an ideas and storytelling tool, a set of tools, in fact, on the westboroughmasterplan.com website. So we received over 95 or about 95 different ideas from the community and one storytelling exercise, which is great. Really fed into all of our distinct efforts of the different subcommittees. We also drafted the existing conditions, and the Master Plan Advisory Committee has had a chance to review those and provide some comment. We've approved the Master Plan Vision Statement, which Jim Robbins will be presenting this evening as well. And again, we've drafted the goals and actions, which are the focus of discussions this evening. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jim Robbins, who's going to talk about that vision statement that the Master Plan Advisory Committee approved.
Thank you, Donnie. Good evening. I'm Jim Robbins, the town planner, and I'm going to share with you what our master plan vision statement is and the actual vision statement itself. So the vision statement represents the community, what the community wants for its future. What does the community value the most? How does it want to be perceived? Where does it want to be a leader? It guides the rest of the master plan. It serves to inform the goals and actions to achieve those goals. It guides municipal decision-making by providing a long-term, comprehensive perspective. So the vision statement itself, and you're going to see that this is a multiple-phased statement. Westborough is incorporating 1717 as a New England town between Boston and Worcester that is home to a diverse community and a strong sense of pride and a can-do spirit. It's underscored by its commitment to equity and inclusivity, as well as widespread civic engagement and participation. Our people are what make Westborough great. Together, we have reflected, explored, and confirmed our vision for the future. We are a community that will be balanced. We measure new development against our ambition to preserve our historic and cultural heritage, as well as the unique and important natural resources that support biodiversity and contribute to the scenic character of our surroundings. We are connected. Our sense of community permeates throughout our inclusivity, social, educational, recreational, and cultural activities, and more specifically, in which these activities take place. The human qualities of Westborough are continually evolving with the increasing diversity of our collective backgrounds and abilities. We are desirable and accessible. Our attractive neighborhoods offer exceptional schools, confidence in public safety, and a range of housing options with increasing affordability opportunities. They are great places to live across lifetimes. We are thriving. We are a hub of economic activities at the crossroads of the Mass Pike, I-495, and Route 9 within the Metro West region. This is thanks to businesses, both large and small, the latter of which are the backbone of a vibrant mix of uses in our historic downtown. We are multimodal. We are served by a wide range of efficient local and regional transportation networks, including linkages to regional commuter rail of expanding network of pedestrian and biking facilities, highlighted by our trail network, including the much used and treasured charm bracelet. We are sustainable. Our policies and actions reflect our commitment to continuously lessening our environmental impact locally and globally, as well as focusing on assuring public health and wellness. And lastly, we are trusted. Our town government provides innovative and high-quality municipal and educational services by means that are consistent with its strategic mission and values. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Jim. We really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun working with the community and with the committee on developing that vision statement. And I think what's extra special about that is all of the different subtext that was put into that to talk about how unique the community is as well. So what I'd like to do now, as in getting us ready to go into these conversations in the breakout rooms, is give a little bit of an overview about the goals and actions, about what the differences are. Give you an example from some of the land use goals and objectives that we've been working on with the committee that will get you prepped to go into the breakout rooms as well. So if we go into the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit about the differences between the goals and the actions. And it's important to recognize those differences because goals will really support the overarching vision that Jim just read here. They're really meant to be broad in terms of how they're phrased and what they're meant to be. And they're really not meant to be specifically actionable. It's meant to set the broad framework for what you're trying to achieve as a town. Versus the actions, it's really is supporting the goals and how you're going to achieve the goals. It's meant to be pretty specific and very actionable as well. So think about vision as the broadest, goals, and then the actions are going to get really specific. And tonight we're going to be talking about goals and actions together. So some examples when we look on the next couple of slides here is really we want to share what some goals look like here. And for reference, we're talking about land use goals. And you'll see when you go into the different breakout groups that they'll be abbreviated here. LU means land use. So here as an example, I'll read the first couple here, that land use goal number 1 is really about ensuring the town's land use regulations, policies, and procedures meet the needs of today and the foreseeable future and are consistent with the community's vision. So you can see that's a broader goal that you want to make sure that you're meeting those objectives, but how do you do that? We'll have some subsequent actions. Looking at land use goal number 3, down towards the bottom. This one's really about the downtown. Revitalizing the downtown, the historic and cultural heart and identity of Westborough to be more vibrant, sustainable, and livable. Again, a broad goal. How do you do that? Will need to be supported by very specific actions as well. So here's some pretty good indicators. If we go on to the next slide here as well, we'll realize what it means in terms of some specific actions that are associated with that goal. So I've already read goal number 1 here about really land use regulations, policies, and procedures, really about the future and about your vision statement. So a couple examples in the sub-bullets about some actionable items that follow. So the first one here is really about engaging a third party to review and revise as necessary the town's zoning bylaws to be for consistency and clarity. So having someone that comes in, looks at those bylaws, really gets into the meat of it and make those revisions will be really important. The third one on here about evaluating the town's zoning bylaws and opportunities to make development review more efficient and streamlined. How do you make sure when developers come into your town that that process is really efficient and streamlined? Very specific actions that are, again, supporting the goal and supporting the overall vision as well. So when you go into the breakout rooms, think about goals, think about actions. We'll be talking about both, but understand that there are some differences between them. Next slide, please. So in terms of the breakout room discussions for all, we want to give you a little bit about the 101 about what to expect in terms of how we're about to embark on that process. Next slide. So the purpose of this is really, as Donnie and Lester mentioned early on, we really want you to have a great conversation about the goals and about the actions. I know the committee is really excited about hearing from the community about what you like, what you don't like. A couple of prompting questions here. Do we miss anything in thinking about goals or actions? Think about how they're feasible and how they're relevant to the community. Think about other examples from communities that you might know and how they might be relevant to Westborough here as well. And think about any actions that can be connected for the greater benefit, especially when you're seeing different chapters that we're going to be talking about, different topic areas. Think about some of the connectivity that might be between them as well. Next slide, please. And then in terms of what you're going to be talking about tonight, we have 9 different chapters that are going to be going into the comprehensive master plan. You can see the list here up on your screen. Given the time allotment that we have for this evening, we're going to spend the next hour going through 4 different breakout sessions. So you're going to be automatically assigned to be participating in 4 of these different sessions. And then don't be worried if you don't get to talk about all of these. At the end of the meeting, we're going to talk a little bit more about other ways that you can give us some of that feedback that's actively online and through some contacts that you can get back to the town planning office as well. But really looking forward to a robust conversation on all of those chapters over time. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the room logistics. As I mentioned, there'll be those 9 breakout rooms. We're going to have 4 different rotations, again, 15 minutes each. Each breakout room discussion will be facilitated by the folks that you can see on the video here as well. They're all members of the Master Plan Committee. They're going to be joined by a person who's going to be scribing, which means taking notes here as well. And they're going to be tag teaming, and they're going to be focusing on specific topics. The facilitators and the scribes, along with their topics, will be moved from each room. So basically the folks that are joining in as participants will stay in that room. And then we're going to be rotating the facilitators 4 times through the evening as well. So what'll happen after that 15 minutes, you'll see 2 new people arrive. They'll introduce themselves, talk about the subject matter they're about to go into, read some of those goals at a really quick level to be able to get the conversation going as well. And then on the background, just to keep everybody on time, we'll be giving a 5-minute warning and a 1-minute warning as we go through each of those 15-minute segments as well. Next slide. So a little bit about the room logistics as well. Again, you're going to be talking about goals and about actions. They have been posted to the master plan website. So after this evening, or if you're watching at home, feel free to join at westboroughmasterplan.com to see all of the different goals and actions that have been drafted. And then also remember that you can submit your ideas during the meeting tonight or after the meeting by going to the website as well. We have enabled what's called an ideas tool on the master plan website. Look for that tool on the homepage there. You can submit more ideas about any of the subject matter that we've talked about tonight. And again, you can also email that to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. Next slide. So I think we're about ready to get into the breakout rooms here. And I think it's important, just like we'd have a regular public meeting in person here, to go over a couple of the ground rules, especially as some of us are new to the technology. So we're invited to unmute when you go into the breakout rooms. But if you can please remain muted when you're not talking, that'll really avoid a lot of the background noise. You're invited to use your video to be able to go on video here as well. If you're not comfortable, you can turn that on or off at your leisure as well. And please, in terms of your comments, we'd love to hear as much as possible for everyone. So just please make sure that your comments are short, allow everybody time to speak. The more the merrier on that front as well. And then remember that all perspectives are really important here as well. So you might disagree with one of your neighbors, and that's okay. We really want to hear as diverse of comments as possible. Staying on topic, what you might realize that you might be tempting to talk about transportation, but you might be in a land use breakout room. If you can try to help us by staying on topic, that way we'll really get as much feedback as possible channel as well. And then also lastly, just any inappropriate language or behavior that's happening on the Zoom platform here, just be noted and advised that we have the ability to turn off your video. And if that does persist, that unfortunately we're going to have to remove you from the meeting. And the most important one here is have fun. We're really looking forward to this conversation and having a wonderful time learning and talking about your community as well. So with that, Donnie, I think we're ready to go to the breakout rooms. Are we all set in terms of how they're set up with the facilitators and everything ready to go?
Yep, for the most part, I will be moving one or two individual note takers to their rooms, but I can open up the rooms right now.
Okay, great. So the rooms are going to be opened. And for those that are joining as participants, when Donnie opens those rooms, you'll have an invite that'll pop up on your screen. Make sure you click to join that meeting. And then your facilitators will show up in a few minutes, and just give them a minute or so to be able to share their screen and get things set up on their side. Have a quick round of introductions and we'll get started. So you ready to open them with Donnie?
I am. All right.
All right, so open up and have a lot of fun. And we'll see you in a few minutes, folks.
Great.
All right, welcome. Hi, Walter and Owen. You can unmute and say hello and open up your video if you want to be able to interact with people. It's good to see you. Hi, Jessica. Hey, Walter, good to see you.
Oh, my hair now.
You know what? It's okay. This is it. Hello. Lakshman, and I'm so glad you are in our partners tonight. I'm looking forward to it. All right. I'm going to assume that pretty much anybody that was going to be sent to our group will be here in a second. Hi, Jessica. Good to see you. All right. So I am Amber Bach, and I'm a member of the Master Planning Committee. And Lakshman and I are on the Economic Development Subcommittee, and we have some other members there with us. We'll do some quick introductions, and we'll dive right in. This really is meant to be fun and enjoyable for you, an opportunity for us to get your feedback. I really loved being on this committee. I am by no means an expert on the topic. I, like you, live in the community, and I'm a passionate member of wanting Westborough to be the best place it can be. And so it's been fun and enjoyable to be able to provide feedback on the economic development branch of this work. We have in our subcommittee that have worked with us, Lester Hensley's in our subcommittee, along with Christy Williams, Lakshmanan, and his son Viggy, who have brought really dynamic input as well. Viggy's gotten the student voice heavily involved into the master plan process. So I'm going to share my screen here so that I can dive in with getting us started and give you a sense. I just have to make a couple adjustments here. Okay, good. Can you see my screen all right, you guys? All right. So we're a small group, so you can feel comfortable to unmute, and we'll be able to have an open conversation together. So the Economic Development Committee took a stab at developing our large core goals, and I'll give you a quick overview and then we'll dive in. I think that we interface with a couple other of the major goals. The land use and development goal we overlap with. So a lot of the ideas about what, if you have a lot of input around downtown and the vibrancy of that, that feedback can go in here, but some of our goals have larger economic development plans, and the land use overlap goal will also feed into that. So let me give you a quick overview of the 5 anchor goals to continue. Number 1, to leverage local organizations to help us develop kind of that vibrant and expanded and supported business network. There are a lot of great organizations we can use. Economic Development Committee, 495 Chamber, these dynamic area groups to keep us vibrant. Our other major goal is to use policies to promote successful access to diverse market sectors and to make sure that we're targeting all of the different development areas, small business downtown, large office parks, Route 9, really looking at all of those areas being maximized for best benefit and use. Goal 3 really gets into this mixed use build out promotion of Bay State Commons, kind of a cool, kind of fun conversation that's integrated with the accessibility to the larger downtown area. And number 4 looks at these fostering partnerships for public and private, keeping our workforce development strong, really seeing Westborough as a place where people want to come and work and live, and also looking towards our youth. And then lastly, that's what goal 4 really has, that future oriented look. And then lastly, looking at goal 5, which is the collaboration with our property owners to keep the downtown vibrant and empowered and to unlock its potential. And there's so many great ideas that have circulated around that. So I guess what I'd like to do is I'll open it up to conversation. I would love to hear from you, your ideas about how the economic development of Westborough and those various areas is an important part of our master plan. And then I'll hop into some other key action items so you can see those if you have an area that you want to share or discuss. So I guess I'll open it up. Hi, Sean. Welcome. Unmute, and we're going to start talking about economic development.
That's great. Thank you.
Let everyone know if you hear something in the background, it's my son. It's tub time. I had one point that's sort of related to economic development goals. If you mind if I go first, is that all right?
Go ahead. Then you can mute. That's fine.
Then I can mute myself when you guys won't hear him in the background. So my husband and I are both engineers, and I'm also a teacher. And one of the things that that we've been talking about, because he works for a startup and I teach at universities, is that there's no makerspace or a collaborative workspace that has capabilities for people to work in a shop or prototype things for a startup business. Right now, there's a place in Boston that does that, and then there's one in Framingham. And so we might be well positioned in terms of being in Westborough, you know, not in Worcester where you have all the universities, but we do have, you know, a fairly technological, at least as far as I can tell from the people I know in town, but fairly technological workforce. And so having the capability to have a mixed use space that would be for prototyping, a makerspace, I think that there's an opportunity there to place Westborough as one of those places in Massachusetts. And I'm going to mute myself now.
So Jessica, thank you so much. That's a great piece of feedback and the kind of thing we're looking for. And there's been some interesting synergy about looking around collaborative workforce areas where you could do the visiting office site where you can rent a space or come in and do the work collaboration for a day, but along the same lines of a more innovative, even broader reaching makerspace where you could do actual live production and work is a really innovative idea. And I think we could, you know, it's the kind of thing we can look to partner. That would probably fall under the economic development goal and action number 5, where you're looking at ways to identify incentives and grants and supports to get these different businesses to collaborate with us to kind of co-share setting up spaces as well. So that's an incredibly nice piece of feedback. Let's keep sharing and we'll hop around and look at the action plans that we already have. Next ideas.
Well, one thing I really would like to see with our economic development would be we've seemed to have attracted a lot of car sales and a reasonable assortment of restaurants, but we have no really arts, entertainment, music, venue really to speak of at all, other than what we do through schools, which is great for that age group. But it seems to me that's always a gap here. There's, you know, you want to call it nothing to do, but there's it is I think a lack, and when you see Hudson's recent economic development and some of the interesting places that have come into the downtown there, I think that's a reasonable model. That's
a great example, Walter. There's a lot of rich discussion in our group about Hudson as an example, and some of the areas. Hopkinton also has some live entertainment places sparking up, and looking towards that as a anchor. And so I flipped to goal 3 here: promote mixed use and build out of the Bay State Common area as a space where live music would not interrupt people that live above areas in the downtown area. And also looking at live music and the idea about getting the whole walkability of the downtown Rotary stretch of that area, and then building a network such that the walkability is over into the Bay State area, and really creating a vibrant, extended space. I love that idea as well. And
yeah, sorry, the other concept, sort of like Natick has TCAM, Center for Arts. It's about a 200-seat indoor place where they have music, they have arts, they have different things. I think it's a nonprofit, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that kind of plays off of
that
Jessica's
could fit
idea.
into something like what you were talking about too.
Yeah, I think that looking towards a range of spaces, those are both great ideas. We've looked at some community art-based centers with the idea of people who want to be able to make and innovate and bring communities together. Other ideas that come to mind when you think about vibrant economic development?
I think what's going on over near 495 where Olympus has come in, I think there's a real opportunity over there to still expand in that area to try and kind of rebalance our commercial base versus our residential base. And there you're close to 495, Route 9, things like that. You're not hopefully clogging up downtown, but I think that it's one thing we've started to see, and my hope is that we continue to see it over there.
So let's hear more about that, Sean. Are you thinking when you talk about that rich development of that area that we would emphasize more commercial development there, or do you see some mixed use over there? Talk about how that creates the kind of balance you're envisioning. I think that's great.
I think one of the issues that that residents in Westborough are having is that as the residential real estate has become a bigger percentage of our town, it has led to kind of an increase in town taxes. So what you're seeing is if there's a 3% increase in the expenses of the town, it can sometimes end up being a 3.5 or 4% increase for the residents because of the overweight to the residents. And if we can balance that out a little better, I think 15 or so years ago, it used to be roughly 60-40, and now it's, creeping up to 70-30.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
that's one area over there where it wouldn't be as big of a inconvenience.
Yeah. So to summarize so that Lakshman can get it down too, I think really recognizing that we could focus areas of strong commercial development, maybe on either end of those areas, the other end of the town as well, where Amazon's coming in is also vibrant of opportunity to balance out a stronger percentage of tax base for commercial and residential. Does that capture your thinking?
Yes, thank you, Amber.
All right. I think there's been rich conversation about that. And I think I want to make sure that we as a team, Lakshman and I, capture, you also are picking up the point of putting it in the right location so that it doesn't impact traffic and the downtown area is kind of what I heard you edging around.
Yes.
And then are you thinking kind of as we look at like Walter's idea that, and a little bit around, I want to go back to Jessica's idea. Walter, you're thinking too, just to push on the theme of a really vibrant kind of Westborough's version of Hudson and Hopkinton, and with some downtown entertainment and shops and things that really feel like a living space.
Some talents together and hopefully produce some good outcomes from that. And that's just kicking off. And then goal 5, this was about the admin side and you know, obviously all of these things cost money, or many of them do. And so, but there's fortunately a lot of opportunities out there for grants and various things that we could potentially take advantage of. So ways to do that.
No, I'm not trying to be funny, but a Rotary training class would be great because I don't know, I've lived here for a long time and people still don't understand the Rotary. I don't.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
that even speaks to Shelby's point about technology. I mean, maybe there's, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing we do to fix or address the issue. It could be something technology based that's, you know, an app or whatever. I don't know. I mean, your point is taken. You know, you've lived here a long time and you've seen, you know, how that.
Chris, it was touched on a little bit in safety, but maybe it's implicit is I think that the more we can appropriately use emerging technology, you know, safe crossings, you know, that we have a system of, you know, or plan in place to paint crosswalks or add crosswalks. I don't know if that's in here. I know we're jumping into, but something about that has to be part of kind of transportation.
Okay, we got that written down.
Well-marked roads and signs.
You ended up leaving the room, but
Can you put me back in there? Sorry. How did I do? Sorry, I thought so I should stay and you're bringing other people to me?
we will move you specifically, but it seems like everybody came back out of their rooms.
Was I supposed to do something? I got bumped out of my committee.
Yeah, we'll just reopen the rooms. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I did try to keep the rooms open. So what I'll do is I'll just reopen all the rooms and everybody will go back to where they were.
Yeah.
So sorry for the inconvenience.
And then what?
Are we?
And then
we'll rotate the facility.
And then we'll rotate.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Just join.
Sorry
Sorry about that. A little hiccup on the moving people around. So we'll be switching groups here in just a second. So you'll see a new face here in just a minute. But I think Viggy took some notes and appreciate everybody's feedback.
Yep. And then also one other quick kind of piece of advice, I guess. When you guys see these slides, there are a lot of words on the slides. So I would also recommend, you know, when you see the overall topic, you know, try not to figure out how to improve the goals necessarily, but think about what's a problem that you see, and then leave it to us to kind of update the goals, I guess. You know, that makes sense. It might help with idea generation.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you guys. All right. So let me just set up my space here. Let me just get this. Hold on. I am going to share my screen to start as your host. And I'm going to set us up and get going. All right. Can you guys see my shared screen now?
Yes.
All right. And I want to make sure that I have Shmanan should be coming along with me, hopefully. All right. So it looks like I'll be waiting for my note taker to arrive in a second. It's good to see you. I'm Amber Bach, Superintendent of Schools and community member who is a member of the Economic Development Committee. And we should be hopefully joined soon by Lakshmanan, who's also a member of the Economic Development Committee with me. And he was my note taker. Unless Kristen, are they not leaving you here to take notes, are they? Up there he is. Okay, welcome. Lakshmanan, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lakshman. I'm helping with note taking here for the economic development team.
Great. We also had other members on this committee, Lester Hensley, Christy Williams, and Viggy, son of Lakshman, who brought a tremendous amount of student input to this work. The Economic Development Committee had a lot of anchor goals that look towards the large sustainability of a strong economic work force and set of areas for businesses across Westborough. We overlap heavily with the land use and development goal that looks at creating a vibrant downtown. And I think a lot of people, when they think about economic development, also sometimes want to talk about the downtown area, and we'll help you to kind of sort those two out. We have 5 major goals. I'll give you a quick overview and open up for conversation because we mostly want to hear your thoughts. The 5 major goals looked at, 1, being able to actively work with corporations and businesses to leverage local organizations to keep us vibrant and connected. Looking at leveraging the Corridor 495, the Chamber of Commerce, Metro West Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Development Committee, working to interface those groups and leverage them to create a vibrant kind of network for interacting together. Secondly, another major goal for us looked at having policies that promote success across really diverse market sectors, which is realizing in Westborough we're very unique. As you heard at the intro, we have to think about the office parks, we have to think about the retail corridor on Route 9, and then we have to think about this balance of our kind of a downtown retail, mixed use, and business area. And they all have like distinctive needs, and this goal really has to flesh those out. 3, we're looking to promote a mixed use build out of that Bay State common area. This interfaces with the downtown vibrancy area and integrating it to be accessible and making it part of that larger downtown feel and vibe. Number 4 goal looks at fostering partnerships, both public and private, that advance the workplace development, making sure that we're a vibrant place to work and live and play. To respect that, we want to also then look towards our youth and encourage them around making sure that they feel plugged in for the opportunities of making Westborough a place they want to return and live after they graduate and go to college. Lastly, goal 5 focuses on in collaboration with property owners and businesses to look at Westborough's downtown, to organize it and empower them to unlock the potential of economic development. And
there's a new extension coming to take that park down to Flanders Road, which hopefully will increase occupancy, which is good for business taxes. And those areas already are figured into the capacity, even if they're not developed and or are considered in those studies. And so it's important to understand that. But what we'd like to have is more capacity so that if we want to do housing downtown or other areas, you know, what are the possibilities there? So that is being studied right now. It will be considered also in any of these goals or actions, because if the infrastructure is not there, we can't achieve these things. Other thoughts or questions on that, on those particular, on the broader goals?
Well, I guess I'm interested because it seems to me, to a large extent, the land in the town is sort of almost all in use, that there aren't vast, large areas that are, you know,
not developed,
going up for sale or not developed or anything. So some of our options may be more limited unless it's reuse of existing areas.
Walter, so you're aware there's a new committee has just been established by the select board as well to do an updated basically understanding of what are all the remaining undeveloped spaces.
Yeah.
And then also potentially reuse. And so it's a great point. I mean, we've got a part of the urgency here, and certainly we've been working closely with the Open Space Committee, is getting that new inventory, you know, so we know exactly what we have to work with and how can we preserve it or if it's ideal to use it correctly. And so you're right, compared to 40 or 50 or 60 years ago for me here, there's clearly less open space. And that's the point about the balance here. You know, people want economic development to help support taxes, but you know, are you willing to give up your open spaces for those type of things, and where and when or should we do that? So I think that new inventory is going to help. It's also going to look at reuse options for certain areas as best we can figure, and those things these goals will all be considered in that use. You know, it's been nice to see more land open space purchases lately. I'm hoping there's more, but to your point, it has to be there to purchase it or to keep it as that. And so, you know, we have what we have. But I'm hoping that go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought you were done talking. I want to make a minor comment or concern about future land use and development. And so the trend that I've been seeing cropping up in and around the 495 and 95 belts is that you start to see like large 6-7 story condos and apartments go in, and then those kind of like stress the system overall. And they'll put, you know, your population density goes up, but you don't necessarily have all the services for it. Like you don't have the grocery stores and whatnot. I'm wondering if the committees are kind of taking that into account, or is that covered in the zoning? Like, is this the wrong discussion for that?
It's covered in the zoning. I mean, there's a 4-story limit on new development. So, you know, Fountainhead, I can never remember the new name of Fountainhead, but that was obviously prior to that. So there are now limitations of 3 or 4 stories, or depending on where it's located. And so, but again, those things are all open to discussion in terms of, you know, if it's a change, obviously it would have to be a new zoning law and approved by town meeting. Under the new government, the governor's new order, the zoning changes will be easier and require a majority rather than 2/3. So some things that people may like to see done may be easier to achieve. So each area has its own existing restrictions in zoning, and certainly those are considered in every project. Okay. Why don't I'll jump down to the actions so you can see a bit more detail here. You know, on the first one, you know, it's really about getting the zoning documents, and to your comment, you know, for folks to be able to understand what's possible a little bit more easily without the way that the zoning rules read now. So it's formatting, it's consistency, it's presentation, all those things with regard to with the existing laws, and then consideration for others. So that it's easier and simpler and more user friendly. So that will be part of what that first goal is about. And I'm sorry, the actions to implement it. And again, jump in and interrupt me if you have comments or thoughts. The second, I think, gets to more of some of the other comments folks talked about here. The balance of land uses. How do we balance economic development and development of properties with sustaining open space that's becoming more and more scarce, as was alluded to. And so there's a variety of ways that we're going to attempt to do that. Look at the transit-oriented village and certain special permits that would allow creative, you know, type of use, particularly in the downtown area. I think we'll do even more of that to try to create that downtown vibrancy, and areas such as that. Any thoughts or comments on that particular area?
Makes sense.
Okay. And then for the second goal, you know, explore potential for incorporating mixed use and smart growth zoning districts, where we can create particular desirable uses in areas that we'd like. You know, and again, these things have been talked about in the intersections, you know, the Route 9 and 90, 135 and 30, make sure that we're planning, whether it be access use, sidewalks, like was commented on, and then the next wave of office and industrial developments, you know, attempting to you know, I can't move this up for some reason on here so you guys can see the bottom, but essentially we're trying to attract development smartly, but also consider the impact on both the climate, town, everything alike.
Do you know if there's a provision for space devoted to renewable energy within the town?
So we have added to the goal, the environmental sustainability component was actually added as based on feedback from the Climate Change Committee. And so in each of these actions, that will now be a consideration. And we will be working with that Sustainability Committee to take that into account as much as we are able. There's been discussion of charging stations, discussion of adding potential green considerations into the zoning if it's appropriate or where it's appropriate. So yes, that has been discussed on a regular basis. Yeah, which is great. All right, let me jump to 3. So you can see actions. This really addresses the downtown area, trying really to get vitality and participation and community feel back in the downtown area. And so those are the different actions in terms of how we will achieve that. Thoughts and feedbacks that any of you might have, because this has been a big one that people have brought up to us a lot.
Yeah, it seems like the railroad bridge is a big obstacle to, I don't know if there's any possibility of creating a second way over, but that it seems like on the east side of town, from the center out that way, we're kind of.
I'm sorry, was there another follow-up to Walter's?
No, I'm sorry. That was my son. He was just yelling.
Okay. Well, maybe he feels strongly about it. You never know.
Yeah, that he's here. I kind of want to echo what was just said by, was it Walter, that there,
Okay, yes.
that much like what happens in Worcester with 290, where it like cuts the city in half.
Yes.
The train station, the train line really does seem to do that, and I feel like there might be an opportunity on the kind of the backside of Bay State Commons to go over the train tracks, and then there's might also be a possibility to expand the underneath of the train tracks. That is like a walking path that is on the opposite side of the main street from Bay State Commons. I'm blanking on name roads here.
I understand you. I think the key, we will definitely, we'll make note of your thoughts. I know from both Economic Development and Planning Board participation, it's been studied repeatedly. The challenge on behind Bay State is we've got the Cedar Swamp there, and there's a lot of wet and hard to get through. And then in terms of the bridge, to raise that even just a few feet is like a $10 million project, because you have to go a mile in each direction on the trains to get a gradual grade change.
Yeah, I know. I'm a train engineer. I was thinking actually going down.
There you go. Well, going down's wet. So the problem with down is there's too much air into the water table. If you recall how quickly that floods when it rains.
Yeah.
But I think what we're trying to do here is really think of big ideas. And so we'll make note of your comments and see if we can't continue to think creatively. And when we're talking about a 10 or 15 year time frame here, we want to consider everything, because I assure you, it's not you two. We've heard this from so many folks. So that's important to hear, and we'll make sure that we bring that up. Looks like we're going to get booted in a few seconds here. So thank you very much for your participation and comments, and please continue to jump online if you haven't.
Right back in the rooms. So just bear with us.
Are we supposed to be staying in though, or?
Yeah, there was a glitch about getting brought back here accidentally first. So that's okay. We're going to go right back to the rooms, and then we're going to do the rotation. So.
Okay.
Yep, this should not happen again, folks. So
I see.
Thank you very much for your patience.
No worries.
We get ready to be switched. Same rooms, then Donnie and I will move you over.
All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
I'm sorry, I get remuted every time they do that to us. All right, we're back. Sorry, they pulled us out for a minute there.
Gotcha. This is probably temporary. Yep. And there he goes. Yeah, the revitalizing the downtown is tough.
railroad crossing?
You know, that question of the railroad crossing is really, really tricky because it's such a bottleneck for traffic and issues because it's such a low bridge. And
How about a flyover like they did at the Cape, right?
I mean, it's tough because all the railroad bridges around here, especially for that corridor that was owned by CSX when they first built it, they're all granite block abutment, and so they don't go very deep, and they're real tough to work with in terms of today's design codes and standards. So it's yeah. There is another bridge under that is parallel to Otis Street that isn't used.
Oh, you mean behind CVS?
No.
No.
Over by Otis.
Okay, you're over by Otis, yeah.
Like further direction of that, further west.
Hello.
There's a bridge there.
Hi.
Jody.
Fisher Street.
I've got some familiar faces here.
Yeah.
It's almost like a reunion.
You can hear me?
Yes.
This is it. All right. So what do I need to do? Bear with me. We've got 6 participants. This is a cozy group. Hi, Nancy. I'm Jody Hensley. And Jessica, you're muted. So when you speak, just need to speak, just unmute. Sean, Keo, I know you. Walter, hello. And we've got Jeff from Westborough TV. This is a cozy group. And Jessica Rosewitz, I don't see you, but I see your name. So you're in the public health group, in case you're wondering, and we should be getting Kathy Metzger, who's the note taker for this group, should be joining us shortly. So where were you last time?
Land use.
Okay. You had land use before?
Had economic development and land use.
Okay.
Now we're in public health.
So have you fixed the master plan in 2 sections already, and now there's a third?
It seems pretty well scribed already.
Okay. All right. You know, I am going to try and take notes as we move forward, and maybe Kathy Metzger is going to be put in here and maybe not. But I'll share my screen and I will bring up public health goals. And share. Did I do it?
Yes.
You can see them? All right. We ended up during the explore phase, reflex phase and explore phase of this master plan when considering public health. And I gotta say, public health is not generally a traditional area for master planning. The master planning tradition was based in land use issues. And we are trying to integrate the lived experience on the land into this master plan. So it's dealing with not only what we do with underlying land uses, but what we do on the land in community. So the broad public health goals that emerged were to make, do we have someone else here? Anyway, to make community health, physical and mental health a planning priority. And in doing so, then to be proactive in addressing current and emerging health challenges and their underlying social determinants. So little did we know we'd end up with a pandemic in the middle of this process, which has unveiled lots of community health issues. And then the second issue was, or the second broad goal became advancing Westborough as an age-friendly community that enables persons of all ages to feel welcome, stay connected, and participate in community activities and remain active. So those were the 2 broad goals, and I'll walk you through the actions that came early, but we're very interested in hearing your input on both the goals and the actions. Under goal 1 was to evaluate the feasibility of adding a public health nurse or educator. And that would be to offer public health services, resources on various public health topics, and implementation in community health programming. So that is the kind of a position, a person, a nurse educator who could be doing public health services plus prevention and health promotion education. The second action would be to create a subcommittee that is, this is very specific, and looking at solutions to nutrient loading and algae blooms in Lake Chauncey. This is a very traditional issue that sits in a health department, and this is a major recreational asset for the town. And when we have algae blooms, because of the health risks, we don't get to use that. So to get to the bottom of that, we're going to need to figure out what's going on, solve that problem of nutrient loading at Lake Chauncey. The third action that emerged was to take a look at the town's zoning bylaws and to make sure that they contain adequate protections for public health and that they promote community well-being. And some of the examples of the way these could be looked at would be to limit sensitive land uses near areas where noise and air pollution are a public health issue, creating greater allowances for childcare and healthcare facilities, particularly near traffic, to create buffer zones around schools and places where families congregate to exclude activities that really are not, don't contribute to the protective factors for public and community health. The fourth action was around outdoor lighting regulation. So there was input that the town needs to take a look at controlling glare and creating a sky-friendly lighting in town. Okay, the fifth and sixth actions under this broad first goal were to ensure that health services are located in areas that are accessible to residents and prioritizing those that really have demonstrated need. And to make sure then we explore opportunities to improve access to existing health facilities through transportation or transit. The sixth action was to ensure that there's adequate resources to continue to provide counseling and social services to residents in accordance with demands. And the Department of Youth and Family Service was specifically focused on as needing to make sure we provide that resource, which is we're not necessarily meeting the demand at this point. Let's see. Then there are three more goals, three more actions around this goal, and they all had to do with nutrition and food and healthy eating. So one was to work with agriculture stakeholders to increase the awareness of and access to locally grown healthy foods, fresh foods. Others was working with the school department to make sure that a healthy eating education program is there and that the food programs are serving healthful foods. And then the ninth one was to engage private owners and vacant and underutilized properties to try and develop community gardens. And community gardens was, again, part of that generalized healthy nutrition goal. So let's go to the second goal, which was around Westborough as an age-friendly community. One of the actions was to require that all new construction and major renovations integrate the principles of universal design. And what that means is that any new projects, just make sure the design allows that facility, building, project to be used by people despite their age, size, ability, or disability. The second action there was to encourage representation of older adults on municipal boards and committees to make sure that that perspective is heard in decision-making in town. The third action would be to expand the programming at the Council of Aging to take people outside the senior center and use spaces more broadly in the community, such as community kitchens, gardens, and walking facilities. And then the fourth action on the age-friendly community goal was to promote awareness of and existing public programming that support seniors staying in their homes. So that action was to really support seniors who want to age in place. So those are the two major goals and the actions that have been considered so far. And now I want to turn it over to you to gather your thoughts on the public health issues and the way we should be planning for them in the master plan. So you make sure you're unmuted. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, I'll start with a comment. It seemed like some of these were perfect, in my mind, perfectly suited to town. But some of the other goals seem more suitable for regional or something. I just don't see us affording or having expertise in some of them are sort of universal subjects. So,
Okay.
I found, I just thought, I was thinking about some.
Renovate and expansion of the library building while ensuring the project looks forward to diverse and evolving needs of the community. Study the need and feasibility of constructing a satellite fire station to serve the east side of town. Explore potential locations, existing and new, to dedicate to the storage of municipal records while considering opportunities for enhancing digitizing these records. Evaluate the need to expand the town senior center in terms of its physical presence and its programs and services. With any proposed expansion, consider opportunities to include facilities serving other age groups. A community center or recreation center with space for art and related activities with a state-of-the-art technology center. So there was a lot there under this particular goal. Any questions or comments?
Yes. Me?
Go right ahead, Chris.
Okay. One that we're right on right now, in our last session, I brought up as an elder who just turned 76, that I don't want to go to the senior center. And I know quite a few other people who are over 65 who do not want to go to the senior center. It is siloing the aged. You feel like you're all clumped together with a lot of old people, and I don't want to do that. I want to be in a dynamic situation that happens to be multi-generational, that is dynamic. And one of the best suggestions that came out of the last session was to have the big room in Forbes to be used as a multi-generational teaching place where the young people could teach computers to the older people could give them all kinds of skill teaching like knitting and crocheting and whatever you want to the young generation. That's something missing in my life that I want to be around some young people. Don't have it. All the kids in the neighborhood grew up. Everybody grew up. So therefore, expanding the senior center, I do not think will help the town, in that lots of us, there's a lot of people out there that won't go to the senior center. It's like being branded, setting apart the other. And the other comment I have, of course, is having been a library trustee for 8 years and building the other edition, I feel bad that the edition's coming down, but the library is a fantastic place to bring all cultures and ages together. One of the few places I see as a town department that engages the new people in town, because all the different cultures, religions, and ages go to the library, and the library is working hard to have things in different languages and to make it inclusive and diverse. So I think that the library is one of the most important places to put town facilities and money into, because it is looking to the future and serving the present like nothing else that I see in this town. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. I saw a thumbs up on your comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with what Chris said, and I work at the library, and I feel like we're kind of like a gateway. So many new people come into town, and I walk them around the library, not right now, but I used to be able to walk them around the library, talk to them about the rec department, talk to them about all the resources in town. We're kind of like their introduction to the town. And another thing I would say, jumping off of what Chris said, because it was my idea about the Great Hall at Forbes, the other opportunity is, you know, schools close at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They have these, the high school has a beautiful library and it's empty. It's empty at 2:30 because the kids go play sports or they go off and do something. That is another place that people could gather, and you could do the sharing of the multi-generational there as well.
I just want to give credit to Carrie, because she was the one that had that idea, and I didn't even see you in our group, Carrie, this time. But Carrie was the one of getting people out of the senior center and into the multicultural, multi-generational place downtown.
So Chris, just as a question back to you, Does this mean that you're satisfied with the physical facilities other than expanding the library? Or would you favor a new community center, which is one of the actions that's proposed?
I don't think you need a new community center. I think that actually is like frosting on the cake if you make the existing places. And as Carrie had said, the Forbes School, look for the libraries and the schools, as she said. Great, look at your facilities you have now that are empty, that are underused, and use them as community centers. I don't think a community center is going to do it. People, for one thing, the new people moving to town, I'm working with Westborough Connects. It's one of the best things that happened to Westborough, is having people feel like they belong. People are shy, I've been told, and they want to feel welcome. And someplace like a library or school, I think they would go to because their kids go there and they will go where their kids go. But and they're comfortable and feel safe. I don't think they'd do that in a new community center.
Thank you. If there's no one else with their hand raised, I'm looking right now at participant. I don't see anybody else with their hand raised on this topic. I'll go on to the next and last goal here. Ensure the town is adequately staffed and trained to meet its current and future staffing demands, and in doing so, operate the town in cost-effective and innovative ways that provide high-quality municipal services. The actions to be taken: evaluate opportunities to modernize and improve the timeliness of the website updates and other electronic notifications, as well as the overall usability and ease of navigation of the website. Maintain regular updates of the town's capital improvement plan, and in the process, maximize opportunities to coordinate projects to extract greater value for the community.
Seeks to improve health and well-being through cultural participation.
Lester, can I go back one really quick? Is there still a Bay State Green Committee?
Was that supposed to be green or common, or is that actually a thing? Green, the Bay
No,
State Green Committee.
there was a Bay State Green Committee. I just looked at the town website, but I'm not sure they're still in existence. I mean,
again, I don't know. I wasn't a part of the subcommittee.
Didn't they change the name? I think it's Bay State Common is what, I mean, they're talking about the green space at Bay State Common.
Yeah, but I don't know that there's really an active committee on that. I'm just curious. Maybe I'm wrong.
It was initially.
Let's get.
I don't believe there is anymore. I think Mark.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Sally Johnson, Bay State Green Committee. Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
Sally Johnson's long gone from town.
She was like the first performer of the Bay State.
All right, Hazel just showed up, which means things are happening. I'm going to disappear along, I think, with Carol and Beth. I don't know where you're going to go, but good luck. We'll check in later.
Thank you.
Thank you. I almost wish this was a little bit longer so we could get more participation here, but thank you for the feedback we got. And please feel free to get us more feedback on the website as well. But thank you. And here we are. We're still here. You're stuck with us.
Lester, quick question for you. In general, do you know if the master plan speaks to, we talk about our carbon footprint, but we have huge national debt issues in this country. And I'm just wondering if there's any content in that master plan to talk about limiting our national debt footprint, because we're going to have huge debt coming out of COVID as a country. How do we as a community, we want to do all these great, wonderful things, which are really important, but how do we as a community try to limit that debt burden on our society?
Okay, I don't know that it's been brought up in that context of the master plan, but I would invite you to submit that comment more specifically. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Something changed.
We're still here though.
I know, you're stuck with us. All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, hold on a second.
We're going to be moving.
The facilitators now. Hang
telling
on,
us to
facilitators.
This is our Star Trek moment.
Yes, it is.
We get beamed out.
Hey, Zafar, thanks for joining. Zafra? I don't know how to pronounce it.
But we're still here.
Yeah, okay. A few little glitches, but I do like being able to meet in small groups like this. This is
Nice.
Scroll to another slide, we can start talking about it. That'll guarantee you move.
Amazing technology.
Yeah, it is incredible. Hey, and by the way, Westborough TV just joined us here, right? So say hi to everybody out there. We're getting recorded. Thanks for joining us. For
So
the
they're
master
seeing
plan.
what a mess my office is.
Looks like it. Looks very productive. Looks very
Time to
productive.
turn your camera on.
Yeah.
Well, it's called working from home all the time, you know?
All right, here comes Pete. So he's gonna, that means we're leaving.
Hey,
See you later, Lester.
Hi, Pete. Welcome to Group 9.
Yeah.
9. Great group. I can see it now. Well, this is the Sustainability and Climate Subcommittee. I'm Pete Dunbeck. I'm the chair of Sustainable Westborough, and I have my colleague Tim Kaler is note taker, as well as part of Sustainable Westborough and the Climate Action Plan Task Force. We are pleased to, Westborough has, whoops, I gotta share my screen, that Westborough is including a sustainability and climate portion in their master plan this time for the first time. As we, let me get back up here. I'm going to go through the 4 high-level goals that we've established in the Climate Action Plan. And as time permits, we may be able to drill down a little bit, but there's not enough time to kind of get into all the details. The first high-level goal is consistent with our Climate Action Plan that we are busily developing to put in place mitigation strategies and actions for reducing greenhouse gas emissions community-wide, as well as across all of the town's municipal operations, consistent with the state goals. So the state has very aggressive goals in regard to greenhouse gas emissions, and Westborough is committed to doing our fair share of those goals. The second goal is to reduce waste from the town. Westborough has a statistically high percent per capita of municipal waste, and we're committed that over the next 10 years that we're going to reduce our reduce our municipal waste consistent with the DEP goals for waste reduction, 30% reduction. Third goal is around the resiliency of Westborough to the inevitable impact of climate change as our temperatures, as our summers get warmer and our storms get more severe. We need to understand how this is going to affect us in regard to flooding, in regard to tick-borne illness, in regard to more high temperature days in the summers, and the impact of that on our most vulnerable citizens. So the third goal is about understanding and preparing for climate change. The fourth goal is about community education around climate mitigation actions and programs. We have goals that are related to sustainability and climate that are all through the master plan. In addition, we have the Climate Action Plan, an independent document we're developing. There's a great deal of change that's coming in this area. It's driven by the science, and the state is responding with a great deal of programs and plans. And we need to do a good job of engaging the entire community, because this change is going to impact everybody. And we need to help people understand what's coming and what are the best programs and what are the opportunities with rebates and grant money to make this transition to a greener society. So that was a quick overview of the 4 goals in sustainability and climate within the master plan. Before drilling down on any of them, I wanted to stop and ask it, what are your first reactions to these 4 goals? And is there anything missing that you'd like to see us consider that you think may not be included in these?
Sorry, Kara, could you clarify your point on number 2, that this has already been done? Did we already,
Sure.
are you saying we already explored it, or we already have a municipal housing trust?
We have one. At the last town meeting, it was voted to form the municipal housing trust. It is formed and actively working.
Thank you.
But there's always ways to explore how to better supply that trust with funding and resources to achieve their goals.
Mm.
And isn't item 3 also was part of that activity at town meeting? They mentioned it in the same discussion, I believe, with that housing trust.
To provide incentives for developers.
Exactly.
Mhm.
What, if you don't mind, what is the Community Preservation Act? If you can just explain that in a couple of seconds.
Sure. John?
You want to take this one, Kara, or no?
Nope, I'm still not
Heard it from me
confident.
so many times.
And you've got it down.
So the CPA is a state program where the town pays, property owners pay a fee on top of their taxes, and it's not an additional tax. It's a much smaller fee. Usually, I want to say maybe like $100 or so for an average home, and that goes into a pool, and then the state matches a certain percentage of that and gives the town that money. And that pool of money has to be used for affordable housing, open space and recreation, historic preservation, and then one more thing. And that money has to be used, I think like 20% of the pool has to be used for each of those things. And then the balance can be used for any of them in any amount. But basically what it does is it guarantees the town a certain amount of funding that has to go to affordable housing, that has to go to open space, that has to go to historic preservation. And it allows towns to do projects that they might otherwise not have the funding to do.
Thank you.
And we do not have that accepted yet. I believe, I want to say probably more than half of the towns in Massachusetts have accepted it, but Westborough has not.
I'd never heard of it before. Thank you.
Yep.
John, have other towns in our area done it as well?
Yes. Hopkinton passed CPA for one. I don't know any other ones. I know that because that's where I work, but there are others in the area.
Okay.
Goal 3, plan future residential developments in consideration of and with respect for their impact on town facilities and services. Review and revise standards for review to require applicants to address capacity and demand of the proposed development on town services and infrastructure, including schools, and develop a priority residential development map identifying several different categories of development type and density.
How are those, the number 2 sounds like a good idea, but how would that happen? Is that something the town planner would do, or is it a different type of initiative?
John?
Number 2?
Yes.
Yeah, so that could be something that the master plan committee does. It could be something that the planning board does or the town planner. You see a lot of these priority development maps being established by growth study committees or open space preservation committees, because their main focus would be, these are the properties we want to preserve as open space. So here are the properties that we would like to see focused on development to avoid the open space. So it could really be anyone.
Okay, thank you.
It's usually like planning board or the town planner.
Yeah, these are ongoing kinds of activities. Both of these, I mean, these have been going on for the 40 years I've been in town. It's a regular kind of a activity, generally by the planning board and the master plan committee. Yeah.
Right, so keeping it in the master plan just holds us accountable for continuing to do it and revise it. I want to open up the conversation to address any and all of the goals. And I welcome any comments or thoughts related to housing that we may not have mentioned at all in these action steps. It can
I'm not
be
quite sure how to address it, but I don't see anything that really directly goes for senior affordable housing. We've just had this issue with the state property housing where we lost an awful lot of what would have been good senior housing, although right now they're awfully expensive, but again, affordable type houses. Which of these goals and actions would it really address adding substantial amounts of housing in those areas?
There are a few points that may address that. Goal 1, number 2, allowing more non-single family homes could allow for building townhouses or small multi-family homes that would be appealing to seniors but more affordable than what we have available now. That could be an example. Also, let's see.
So I think, Carrie, you've got it pretty good, but I would focus
Okay.
on goal 1 of creating a mix of housing types, because I think when a lot of people think of senior housing, they focus on age-restricted housing because that's just by name senior housing. But in reality, not all seniors want to live in age-restricted housing. They might just want a smaller unit or a smaller piece of property. So creating a mix of housing types that allow for apartments and smaller houses that aren't single family houses that are 2,000, 2,500 square feet plus, allowing seniors to downsize, live within walking distance of amenities. It would benefit young families, it'll benefit professionals, and it'll benefit seniors all at the same time without focusing strictly on seniors. So really getting that mix of housing where you want a mix of housing, I think will benefit seniors. And by creating more of it, it'll reduce the cost to purchase or rent that housing, which will also benefit seniors as well as others.
I completely agree with what you just said, and it is getting those smaller footprints that's really important. But that's the problem, I think. I mean, because of what Westborough is and how it's perceived, which is a good thing. We have developers that only want to build very expensive houses where they make more money.
Right. And so another one of the zoning bylaw changes would change the amount of land that developers could build on. So requiring smaller lots. So developers may not be compelled to build such gigantic homes. So that could be another thing. The housing trust.
As you know, I dream a lot. I second everything you said.
Have to have dreamers.
It's a
My
good
wife
vision.
doesn't think so sometimes.
I want to jump onto something Cheryl mentioned, which with regards to EV charge stations and equitability. It's difficult, the EV revolution's coming, right? We got about a decade as everyone realizes that it's cheaper long-term to own an EV, and in a couple of years, it'll be cheaper outright right from the start to buy one. But if you're an apartment dweller, that's an issue, right? Homeowners, you get the plug right in your driveway and it's not a problem. When it comes to prioritizing EV charging in Westborough, I think we should be looking at apartment dwellers and people that don't have dedicated parking spots, and really taking and prioritizing those places to help with that equitability that Cheryl brought up.
The state is offering programs for them. I just did my capstone paper on exactly this, charging at multi-unit dwellings. It's very challenging, but yes, it's a good idea still.
This is something that's being discussed in the climate action plan, which is in process right now, Ben. I'm on that committee, so. But it's a good point.
It's going to be fun to watch it happen.
I think we got just a couple minutes left. Any other thing that's been on your mind in terms of transportation? You just want to make sure it gets on the table?
Well, Route 9 is basically a barrier for pedestrian access from the north side of town to the south side of town. Both at 135 and at Route 30, people walk under those overpasses and they're taking their lives in their hands. And I know it's been discussed, but you got to do something. The town has to do something, because it's a miracle no one's died yet. And I see people doing that, going under there with baby strollers. And if you're looking at transportation as an issue and mixing transportation, you got to figure out how to make those overpasses not be a barrier to both for non-vehicular traffic getting from the north side of town. If you're talking about making the town more accessible, this is a key thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're talking about putting the, we used to call it senior center. What are we, over in the state hospital area, the recreation building.
Yeah.
You're going to have problems there. And as Chris is well aware, up at Otis Street the same way. You know, the state's dragging their feet on that. I mean, people, there's nowhere for them to walk. And one of you, I think it was Anna and Russo that said that walking along Route 9. Well, the other day, Bev and I were headed to Worcester, and there was a guy on a bicycle, and I was in the middle lane, and all of a sudden I got the finger for nothing. I didn't blink my lights or anything, but they're taking their lives in their hand there too. They're coming from Fountainhead to go to work someplace at one of the restaurants. So I mean, sidewalks not only downtown, but sidewalks everywhere if we're going to get more people on bikes and walking. But and part of the problem is some of the people have got sidewalks and they don't think they're smooth enough, so they're in the road. It seems like we got to put some penalties, write a couple of tickets for walking in the roadway when it's not necessary.
I think Westborough kind of, we're really actually a pretty small town, and we have a lot of infrastructure, and we kind of shoot above our pay grade, if you know what I mean. We have tons of organization, the town administration is like maxed and everything. It's pretty amazing. And all these projects and all these things we want to do, they're all going to cost a lot of money maybe. So, but there are a lot of state programs and including and a lot of grants, but that needs someone to help take care of that kind of stuff. So, you know, everything costs money. That's just, we have to be patient, I guess.
Chris has taken on quite a bit of that. Sometimes we don't see him out. He's behind the desk working on grants, but I think the town needs a grant writer so that they can feed the information from each one of these departments and would allow Chris and others to do more of the managing, not that he's not doing it, but more of the managing that's required. Again, it takes money, like Cheryl said.
Until we have money for that, that might be a great job for a senior to get some tax write-off, because there's so many, there's so many more seniors who have that knowledge than young people who are busy with their families.
I will say it is nice.
Volunteer job.
It is nice to see the little sidewalk snowplow that rolls down the street and clears the sidewalk. I mean, they really do a good job trying to get to every sidewalk with that little machine.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We're back as a big group.
Yes, we are back as a big group. We're going to give everyone a few seconds to be able to make sure that everyone's rejoined, and we're going to share the PowerPoint presentation as Donnie's loading it up as well. And I'm just checking the room. Looks like everyone's back as well. So hopefully everyone had fun in the breakout rooms, and I was popping in and out of many of those as well. Looks like there was some tremendous conversations going on, a lot of good feedback, and hopefully you found something that was really helpful. Maybe you learned something new. I saw a lot of people sharing a lot of great ideas as well. So to keep us on time, we're going to try to do a quick wrap up in terms of what some of the facilitators heard in each of these rooms. And I'm going to ask them to maybe limit it to a minute or two at most, just to be able to give us some of the highlights of some of the biggest things that you might have spent most of your time talking about. So with that, we're going to go through this one by one here. Let's talk to, I think, Jim on land use. If you want to join the conversation, give us a couple sound bites of some of the things that stuck out the most.
Great, thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, I think generally people were very supportive of the goals and actions, and it feels like we've done a pretty good job of the main themes that people are interested in. Downtown is clearly a big one. Revitalization down, and people are excited about that idea. Some things that had not necessarily been thought of, and some of these may fall into other categories. Greens, really trying to continue to add or improve green spaces or the engagement of that within all the different land uses and future development. I think the idea of intentional development, when we try, whether it's the rezoning goals or enhancement, really work to attract what we want rather than waiting or hoping for it to come. And so I think that falls across economic development, land use, a number of areas. So those were maybe some enhancements or where emphasis on some of the things that we already brought, but generally speaking, broad excitement for where we're at.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. And it's exciting to hear people talking about planning for what you want to have happen there as well. So great to be proactive and planning for your future that way as well. So Kara, I think we're going to go to you next on housing, if you'd like to join the conversation.
Sure. We had a conversation in each group about the CPA, the Community Preservation Act. Did I get that right? And about people wanting to understand what it is and what it means, and really looking for more education about that. And once we explained it, we saw a lot of enthusiasm. We also had a lot of conversations about changing housing bylaws to allow for more diverse housing stock, more diverse housing types, including multifamily homes and affordable housing and smaller housing. We also just had a lot of asking for education and examples and participation as the plan or the town moves forward on some of the action steps, really wanting to be able to see the vision, see models or plans in action. So just to get buy-in and to gain the participation of the community.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah, a big theme for us this last year is just really understanding the diversity of Westborough and so many great things, both physically and historically, as well as the people there too. So how does that pertain to housing? Makes a lot of sense as well. And when it comes to the implementation part of our plan, sharing some best practices from other communities and how they're advancing these issues will be important as well. So with that, let's go to Amber. Amber, do you want to join the conversation about economic development?
Great, thank you. It was very enjoyable. I would echo there was a lot of excitement, and we overlap a lot to the comments that Jim just made for land use development and the strong desire for robust and innovation and strategic use of space, getting the right businesses in the right places to create what we want. I think a big point which was, hi, oh, sorry. Lakshman, you want to hop in? I think number two, the balance of commercial and retail and housing, looking to get the balance of our commercial balancing out the tax base with residential, that we feel like it's gotten slightly imbalanced. We'd love to see that push back where it used to be closer to 60-40, and getting some relief in the town. I think number 3, support to be strategic financially, to give financial support to get the right businesses in the right places, such that if they need grease traps, they need a boost to move, they need to collaborate to get set up, that it's going to take some financial strategic commitment on our part to get the move to clustering the vibrant downtown feel we want, and that we need to consider the financial commitment that would take. And I think I'd like that there was a couple ideas around this innovation spaces, working spaces where people that live in town that want to work away from home for the day to come together with other collaborative professionals, looked at an innovation space, maker space, for even fabrication of our engineers and different innovation thinkers, which also pulls on our youth. And I think lastly, an interesting idea around kind of mini spaces where you create small community strategically around town, not having everything centered in the downtown, but recognizing there's other small cluster spaces where with strategic development, you could really create small communities where there's green space and a couple things that draw people together. So really some neat ideas.
Excellent. Thanks for that too. Yeah, it sounds like you talked about a lot of ground there as well. And the idea of diversifying and thinking about spreading out that economic development investments in the right places makes a lot of sense too. So let's go on to natural, cultural, and historic resources as well. I think, Lester, were you going to join in on the natural, cultural part of it, I think?
Yes, happy to. Enjoyed pinch hitting for the subcommittee and had some wonderful discussion. I think in general, an appreciation that the goals and actions have captured what many people are looking for in the community. Some general comments. I think we did learn that the goals and actions, when they get too jargony, are a problem. We must be careful not to use terms and things, programs, and that people don't necessarily understand. I don't know when the appropriate time to capture that is, but let's be careful of the jargon. I think as it relates to cultural and historic assets, there's a lot of passion for the history of Westborough and a desire to build a bridge between generations for appreciating that. So I think one great idea that was surfaced that's not in the actions is to continue the incredible engagement that we have with the youth in town, and Viggy has been amazing in getting us in touch there. But what if we engaged as a youth program to create an app for Westborough history? So the Westborough Go app that could be geocached to locations, and then partner with the library to take all of the incredible documentation and images of buildings that pre-existed and tie the history to that. And maybe even they could tie it into Pokemon Go, so we get people showing up for another reason and they learn something else while they're there, right? So ways to engage across generations and across the rich tapestry of the cultures that are enriching Westborough. So a lot of interest in that. So no, I was just very grateful for the level of engagement and the new ideas that have come as a consequence of these breakout sessions.
That's great. Yes. And bring the fun part to it too, is right. And exploring your apps and doing that stuff. What a wonderful way of connecting the generations. That sounds great. So thank you for that, Lester. Open space. I think Jen, were you on the open space leading the group there? If you want to join the conversation.
Yeah, so we had also really good conversation. It seems like we didn't miss much of anything. People were really excited about what we had. There was a lot of spirited conversation about the B-Wall bike trail, which might not surprise a lot of you, but it was good. It was interesting to hear, perspective from people that really, really want it, and maybe people that are not so sure if they want it in town. So that was interesting. We also got, some really good ideas about, one of our action items is to enhance and maintain space that we already have. And someone was talking about shade and just even being able to be outside, but then going to get some shade. And someone suggested maybe even just planting a tree, strategically placed trees offer the same thing as building a pavilion or something. So it was really good. I think that we, we covered a lot, and yeah.
Right, a lot to be able to build on, right? I think that's the whole point of this
Yeah,
evening is
for
really having
sure.
so many conversations going, a lot of great note taking. I could tell that the committee's gonna have a lot of homework coming out of this evening as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, Jen. I appreciate it. Public facilities and services. And I think Jim, you were on that one, correct?
Yes, thank you very much, Jeffrey. It was a great evening. We had some great comments. I'm going to highlight two in particular and then mention a couple of the others. One of the biggest, I guess, affirmatives to affirm some of the goals and actions of the group is that people want website improvement. People want a more intuitive, easy to navigate town webpage. And there were some people who said, well, I can help you with that. That's a great idea. Also, the idea of using high school volunteers to get involved in municipal government and in what goes on locally. People value hearing what the future leaders of the town want in their community. And I couldn't echo that stronger. That's why we've had a high school student on our advisory committee. Viggy's been doing a great job in the way that he solicited comment from his fellow students. His input to the master plan has been immense. So thank you very much for that comment as well. There was also concern about our public water supply and the need for public education so that the individual homeowner understands how important it is to conserve water, and also working with our business community to get them to understand as well reuse of gray water and things like that. I thought it was a very lively discussion. Thank you to everybody that participated this evening.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that report back, Jim, too. It's when you think about a town's infrastructure and all of the services and how far those things reach and how diverse you are, there's a lot of things to maintain that support network and make it more accessible to people and more user-friendly through the website updates as well. So it makes a lot of sense. Transportation, Chris, you want to join the conversation?
Yep, just like the other groups, we had lots of good discussion, 3 particular themes that kind of came across all the groups. So electric vehicles are coming, at least that was what many people thought, and we need to be setting the conditions for infrastructure so we can support them down the road. A lot of interest and discussion about diverting truck traffic out of the Rotary and you know, the potential connection to I-90 at the rest plant, at the rest I guess the rest stop on at the Hopkins border. And I know that's been something that's many people mentioned has been discussed over several years, and maybe that can be picked up and gain some traction. And then the last theme, I guess, was about sidewalks and just the interest in more sidewalks and you know, connecting subdivisions or downtown to, you know, key places around the town.
Yeah, and Chris, I think I was in your group when people talked about the sidewalks, about the idea of with COVID-19 and healthy walking and connectivity and making that a really big priority made some sense as well. So great, thank you for that report back, Chris. Let's go on to sustainability and climate change. I think Peter, you want to join the conversation?
Yes, thank you. I thought we had good discussions also, and I'd say we had kind of 3 themes also. The number one thing that came across when I step back and think about it was the communications issues we have in town, and Jim mentioned it in the as the website, but in several of our programs we mentioned having communications or people ask questions, and they were unaware of issues that had already been worked on. I think we have a real challenge in town in regard to how to communicate effectively. And there was a strong suggestion for getting better or clear push technology where people can sign up to get information that's of interest to them. Two kind of technical spaces that I heard quite a bit about. One was in our waste management area, just general questions about what was the intent and what was the problem. And what was the general approach in regard to increasing our diversion of waste into recycling and composting. And then the last area that jumped out to me was there was a discussion about different transportation related issues, encouraging bike and pedestrian. What do we do about the traffic and the idling time and the pollution that comes from idling? And how is the climate action plan and how are other initiatives in town going to be impacting those issues? So it was a good discussion. Suggestions about municipal buildings and what can we do with municipal buildings to lead by example in this space was also discussed.
Great. Thank you for that, Pete. It's interesting. You're reminding me when we work with a lot of communities, what they like about going through this master planning process is learning more about their own community that they didn't know things about as well. So how do we make sure that the town is celebrating when they're doing these great things, building awareness about what you're doing, and also drawing in more people that might want to be part of a movement or part of a whole strategy and support and volunteering over time as well. So sharing that knowledge and recruiting some people along the way. And I'm glad to see you're targeting some specific things in that group as well. So where can you really make some change on a sustainability climate change front within the town as well? That's great. So last, Jody, do you want to join the conversation, public health? I think you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, ours was the public health group, and just there was a lot of very good feedback. And just to remind you, our broad goals were to make community health, physical and mental health, a planning priority across a lot of areas, and addressing emerging health challenges and their underlying social determinants. And little did we know that we'd have a pandemic in the middle of this process with lots of emerging health concerns. The second goal then that emerged was to advance Westborough as an age-friendly community. So there's a lot of cross-pollination in both of those broad goals to the other groups. And that showed up in some of the discussions we had here. One good suggestion was to invest in a good health baseline to see what the levels of health are in the areas of concern so that we'll have data-driven decisions to make sure that we're investing in things that are really addressing the health issues that are here. Another one is, and this is COVID informed, is to make sure we're planning for the very basic needs like the food pantries and the Meals on Wheels and the things that have become much more important in COVID time. The second area then I'm going to go back and forth was on the multi-generational living, the age-friendly community. And there were several suggestions to taking a look at granting variances or looking at our zoning to maybe consider modifying multi-generational options to help more seniors age in place. So a lot of feedback that seniors want intergenerational activities. And so when we're thinking about facilities and programming, creating spaces and opportunities for the generations to come together. Seniors don't all necessarily just want to be at a senior center. They really want to have opportunities to, be with young people as well. Let's see what else. Lots of, again, our group talked about communication and making sure that all of our departments and nonprofit organizations and organizations are communicating back and forth around common public health issues. Let me see.
Maybe one more on the list, and then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah.
And then okay. Some of the things that we came up with, there was a suggestion they might be regionally addressed and we don't need to do them all by ourselves. So look at the things that we could address regionally. And there's much more to come. We'll get you the notes.
That's great. Thank you for that as well. And the whole idea around data in health, it's such an emerging topic within community master plans too. The data, frankly, is not quite there yet. So that was a great observation by whoever made that comment as well. So thank you to the whole committee for those report backs. And then, Donnie, you want to lead us through some of the next steps here and where we are to close us out for the night?
Yeah, all of that discussion was really great to hear. I'm glad all of the groups had some fruitful conversations, and I really am looking forward to those notes. So the next steps, finalizing the goals and actions. So we're taking everything that we heard tonight in the steering committee, or the advisory committee rather, is going to be distilling all of that and refining the draft goals and refining the draft actions. And once we have those final actions, a list of final actions, we'll be administering that public survey number 2 that I believe I mentioned earlier in the meeting. And that's really going to be focused on prioritizing those actions. So what does the town want to emphasize? What does it want to pursue, in advance of others? How much stress? What is the order of implementation, in other words, for these actions? And speaking of that, we're going to be taking the results of that, developing an implementation plan in about March and April, We'll pull it all together and consolidate that master plan in April and then May, and then we're going to be presenting it to the planning board and the select board in May. And again, that end project end date is about May 2021. So again, look for that public survey number 2 coming in about the March-April timeframe. For those of you who were not able to attend or want to re-watch this session, you can view it on Westborough TV, westboroughTV.org. You can submit your questions, comments through planning@town.westborough.ma.us. And again, you could also go to westboroughmasterplan.com, and I encourage you to do so. We do have that submit comment submission button. We do have all of the draft goals and all of the draft actions up on that website. For those goals and those actions, those topics you did not get to discuss this evening, those goals and actions are up there. Please review them. Please submit some comments to the tool. The website has been updated today, so that comment submission tool should be very apparent to everybody who goes and visits our website. And with that, Lester, did you want to send us off?
I will. Thank you, Donnie. And just like to extend my thanks again to all of you for taking your this evening to participate in this process. You know, my family moved to South Africa from South Africa to Westborough 42 years ago. And I thought that was pretty cool. And it's amazing to see that we the town is going to perpetuate, right? And we've got wonderful engagement across age groups here, and to invest in the future for the community is a precious thing. I thought I'd spent a lot of time in Westborough when our vice chair, Hazel Nurse's family, has been here 300 years in Westborough. So even more perspective, right? But it's just an incredibly rich community. And every time I get an opportunity to engage in this way, I'm reminded how blessed we are with the community that we have. And it's a consequence of this interest, engagement, and action that we're willing to take that perpetuates that. So thank you so much to all of you on behalf of Hazel, myself, the rest of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, and we hope you'll remain engaged through the end of the project and then further engage in its implementation. So thank you so much and good night.